Hi, everybody. I've just gone live 1 minute before I was supposed to, so I'll wait a minute before I start reading the third chapter of the story. I'm going to start with saying good afternoon, everybody. It's going to be really nice to hopefully get a few of you comment today because I have deleted the kids only. Um, um, how do you call that? The button that tells you whether it's for kids only or not. And having made it public will allow you to comment. So hopefully I'll be able to see some of your comments as we are going along. So we finished quite dramatically yesterday with Carl writing a note to his mum that says, "Don't cry, mother. See you in Nangiala." And I wonder if you could have guessed what might happen that night. I think he had a feeling. So let's see what happens next. Then it happened, and I've never been in on anything so strange. Suddenly, I was standing in front of the gate, reading that green notice, the Lionheart brothers. How did I get there? When did I fly? How could I find my way without even asking anyone? I don't know. The only thing I know is that suddenly I was standing there, looking at the name on the gate. I think that he might have died over the night. Is that what you told your mom and dad as well yesterday when you had to think about it? I think he passed away and he made his way across the stars all the way to Nangiala. I called to Jonathan. I called several times, but he didn't answer. And then I remembered. He was, of course, sitting fishing down by the stream. I started to run down the narrow path to the stream. I ran and ran, and down there by the bridge was Jonathan. And if I try to tell you this, I still can't tell you what it felt like to see him again. He didn't see me coming. I tried to call Jonathan, but I think I was crying as nothing came out except a funny little noise. But Jonathan still heard it. He looked up and saw me, and then he cried out and he flung down his fishing rod and he came rushing up to me and he hugged me just as if he wanted to feel that I had really, really come. And then I cried just a little. Why should I be crying for that matter? Because I had longed for him for so much. Jonathan, he laughed instead, and we stood there on the slope and we hugged each other and we were happier than it's possible to say because we were just together again. And then Jonathan said, "Oh, so you've come at last, have you, Rusky Lionheart?" Rusky Lionheart. It sounded crazy, so we giggled at that. And then we laughed at it more and more, just as if it were the funniest thing we'd heard for ages, though it was probably because we wanted something to laugh at. We were so happy that everything was just boiling inside us. And we laughed for ages, and then we wrestled together. But that didn't stop us laughing. No, indeed not. We went on until we fell over in the grass, and we lay there in the grass and rolled around, laughing more and more. Finally, laughing so much that we fell into the stream. And then we laughed so much that I thought we'd drown. But instead, we started to swim. I have never been able to swim, although I've always wanted to learn so badly. And now I could, just like that. I was swimming away like anything. "Jonathan, I can swim!" I shouted. "Yes, of course you can swim," said Jonathan. And then suddenly I thought of something. "Jonathan, have you noticed something?" I said. "I've stopped coughing." "Yes, of course you've stopped coughing," said Jonathan. "You're in Nangiala now." I swam around for quite a while and then I scrambled up onto the bridge and stood there, wet through, the water running off my clothes. My trousers were clinging to my legs, which was why I could see so clearly what had happened. Believe it or not, my legs were quite straight, just like Jonathan's. And then I thought, supposing I've become beautiful too. I asked Jonathan if he thought so, whether he could see if I had grown beautiful. Look in the mirror, he said, and he meant the stream, for the water was shiny and still, so that you could see your reflection in it. I lay down on my stomach on the bridge, peered over the edge, and I saw myself in the water, but I didn't see anything particularly beautiful about me. Jonathan came and lay down beside me, and we lay there for a long time, peering at the lion brothers down there in the water. Jonathan was so beautiful with his golden hair and his eyes and his fine face he has. And then me with my knobbly snout and straggly hair and all that. No, I don't think I've grown any more beautiful, I said. But Jonathan thought there was a great difference now. And you look so healthy too, he said. And then I felt myself all over. I felt as I lay there on the bridge that I was healthy and well in every bit of me. So why did I need to be beautiful? My whole body was so happy that it seemed to be laughing all over. We lay there for a while and let the sunlight warm us, and we watched the fish swimming in and out and under the bridge. But then Jonathan wanted us to go home, and so did I, because I was so curious to see Knight's Farm, where I was going to live. Jonathan walked ahead of me, up the path to the farm, and I trotted after him with my fine straight legs. I just walked along, staring at my legs. I couldn't stop, and I felt how good it was to walk with them. But when we'd got a little way up the slope, I suddenly turned my head, and then I saw Cherry Valley at last. Oh, that valley! It was white with cherry blossom everywhere. White and green it was, white with white cherry blossom and green, green, green grass. And through all that green and white, the river floated like a silver ribbon. Why hadn't I even noticed it before? Had I seen nothing but Jonathan? But now I stood quite still on the path, and I saw how beautiful it was. And I said to Jonathan, "This must be the most beautiful valley on earth." "Yes, but not earth," said Jonathan. And then I remembered that I was not on earth. I was in Nangiala. All round Cherry Valley were high mountains, and that was beautiful too. And down the mountain slopes, streams and waterfalls ran into the valley so that it just sang of it, for it was spring. There was something so special in the air. It felt as if you wanted to just drink it, so pure and clean it was. "They could do with a few kilos of this air back home in town," I said, as I remembered how I used to just long for nice fresh air when I was lying on my kitchen sofa bed, feeling as if there was no air at all. But here there was, and I breathed in as much of it as I could. It was as if I couldn't have enough of it. Jonathan laughed at me and said, "Hey, you might leave a little for me, won't you?" The path we were on was white with fallen cherry blossom, and fine white petals came whirling down onto us so that we got them in our hair and everywhere. But I like small green paths with cherry blossom petals on them. I really do. And at the end of the path lay Knight's Farm with the green notice on the gate. "The Lionheart brothers," I read aloud to Jonathan. "Just think that this is where we're going to live." "Yes, think of that, Rusky," said Jonathan. "Isn't that fine?" And it was fine. I understood why Jonathan thought so. For my part, I couldn't even imagine anything better to live. In an old white house, not at all big, with green timbers, a green door, and a bit of green ground all round, where cowslips and saxifrage and daisies grew in the grass. Lilacs and cherry trees were there too, in full bloom. And round it all was a stone wall. You know, one of those little grey walls with pink flowers on it. You could have jumped over it as easily as anything. But once inside the gate, all the same, that wall felt as if it protected you from everything outside. It felt as if then you were home and on your own. Actually, there were two houses there, not just one. though the other one was more like a stable or something like that. They lay at an angle to each other, the houses, and just where they met was an old bench that looked as if it had come from the Stone Age almost. A nice bench and a nice corner it was. You almost felt like sitting there and thinking a little bit, or talking, and looking at the birds, and perhaps drinking a fruit juice or something. I like it here, I said to Jonathan. Is it just as nice indoors? Come and look, he said. He was already standing by the door and just about to go in, but at that moment there was a whinny. Yes, it really was a horse whinnying. And Jonathan said, I think we have to go to the stables first. I went into that other house and I ran after him. Just you guess whether I ran after him. It was indeed a stable, and as I thought, there were 2 horses there, 2 beautiful brown horses who turned their heads and whinnied at us when we came in through the door. Here is a picture of the Knight's farm. You can see the little wall with the pink flowers. You can see the sign on the little gate that says Lionheart Brothers. I wonder which of the 2 might be the stable. Can you guess which it is? This is Grim and Fjaller, said Jonathan. Guess which one is yours. Oh, no, go on with you, I said. Don't you try telling me that one horse is for me, because I just won't believe it. But Jonathan said that in Nangiala, no one could manage without a horse. You can't get anywhere without a horse, he said. And you see, Rusky, you have to go a long way here sometimes. It was the best thing I'd heard for ages, that you had to have a horse in Nangiala, because I love horses so much. Think how soft their noses are. I don't think there's anything in the world so soft as a horse's nose. A pair of unusually beautiful horses they were, those 2 in the stable. Fjaller had a white blaze on his forehead, but otherwise they were just like each other. Well, then perhaps Grim is mine, I said, as Jonathan wanted me to guess. Well, you're wrong there, he said. Fjaller is yours. I let Fjaller nuzzle me, and I petted him without being any bit scared. Here you can see him petting Fjaller. Well, we've got rabbits too, said Jonathan, in a hutch behind the stable, but you can look at them later. I might have guessed it. I must see them at once, I said. I've always wanted to keep rabbits, and at home in town you just couldn't have them. I made a quick little tour round behind the stable, and there in a hutch there were indeed 3 lovely little rabbits chewing on some dandelion leaves. It's funny, I said to Jonathan afterwards. Here in Nangiala, there's everything I've ever wished for. Yes, but that's what I told you, said Jonathan. And it really was exactly as he told me, as he'd sat there with me in the kitchen at home back in those days. Though now I was able to see that it was true, and I was really pleased about that. There are some things you never forget. Never, ever, ever shall I forget that very first evening in the kitchen at Knight's farm. How wonderful it was, and what it felt like to lie talking to Jonathan just like before. Now we were living in a kitchen again, as we had always done, although it didn't look like our kitchen at home in town. That much is certain. The kitchen at Knight's farm must be ancient, I thought, with thick beams in the ceiling and a large open fireplace. What a fireplace that was! It took up half the wall, and if you wanted to cook some food, you had to do it directly over the fire, just as they used to in the olden days. In the middle of the floor was the sturdiest table I've ever seen in my life, with long wooden benches down each side, and I reckon at least a score of people could sit there and eat at the same time without it being too crowded. We might as well live in the kitchen as we used to, said Jonathan. Then Mother can have the other room when she comes. one room and a kitchen. That was what Knight's Farm was. But we weren't used to, and we didn't need any more. All the same, it was at least twice as big as home. Home. I told Jonathan about the note I had left on the kitchen table for Mother. I wrote to her that we would meet in Nangiala, though who knows when she'll come. It may be some time, said Jonathan, but she'll have a good room with space for 10 sewing machines if she wants them. Guess what I like? I like lying in an ancient old cupboard bed in an ancient old kitchen, talking to Jonathan while the light from the fire flickers around on the walls, and when I look out of the window, I see a branch of a cherry tree swaying in the evening breeze, and then the fire gets smaller and smaller until only the embers are left, and the shadows thicken in the corners, and I get sleepier, and I lie there, and I don't cough, and Jonathan tells me things. He tells me and tells me and tells me and tells me and tells me, and in the end, I hear his voice just like those whisperings again, and then I fall asleep. That's exactly what I like, and that's what it was like that very first evening at Knight's Farm, and that's why I will never forget it. That was chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Miss Shin and I are going to send you all an email probably tonight or otherwise tomorrow morning with some ideas for you guys to do over the next 2 weeks. I know you probably have done tons of real interesting things already, and it's possible that maybe we are going to come up with some things that you've already done. Anyway, we hope that you have a really good time and that you are settling in nicely with your family, that you're getting nice outside time, and that you're kind. Be kind to your mums and dads because it takes a lot of time getting used to this whole new situation. So anyway, I'll continue reading my stories and I'll try and be live every day at 5 o'clock. I think we should be able to do that. And it would be nice to see all of you just join in. I can see that Machine just sent me a love heart. So if you are live and you are joining in, you can send me some messages because who knows, we might even be able to have a little chat online like this. So a big hug from me, and I know that Machine gives you a really big hug as well. Bye. See you tomorrow.